Hey, it's Dave Bauer.
And this is Brian Mertens, and you're listening to ReWilding Conversations.
Hey, Dave.
Hello, how are you, Brian?
I'm good. Good to hear your voice again.
Yes, in snowy Buffalo, as people saw in the NFL football league here in our country. We had a remarkably snowy day Sunday, and once again, Buffalo gets showcased. Anytime there's snow in Buffalo, we get a lot of coverage, so people think we are the North Pole of New York State.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. My wife and I laughed and thought, yep, there we go. We got great coverage when we're doing snow. We always we're like a magnet. You know, if anything's happening in Buffalo that's reasonably unusual, snow, we get pushed to the national spotlight big time. So it was when the Buffalo Bills were playing the football game. So, you know, nature play, professional nature play. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Very nice.
Yeah. Looking forward to getting out and doing some cross-country skiing this time of year, something I love very much.
Oh, yeah, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I always love how snow it creates this whole different set of opportunities for going outside and engaging with nature in a variety of ways. Skiing and tracking and it's snowball fights and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it provides a really unique visual that is often temporary. It's gorgeous when we first walk into a landscape that has fresh powder and snow. So, you know, and if you've been in it some, it just is a unique physical environment, you know, fresh snow. Just delightful in many ways. Yeah. So what would we like to talk about today, my friend?
Yeah. Well, we were sort of discussing a little bit of, you know, what should we talk about today, and you know, I kind of had in the back of my mind that you know, one of the things that is you know, we'll call it a traditional thing to do at this time of year, like if you look at nature-based cultures, you know, there's a lot of all over the world. There's a lot of things that happen at around the solstice time of year, where different groups of people have traditions around gathering together and basically reviewing the lessons of the previous year, and, you know, spending time, you know, at that darkest time of year, just sort of reflecting on that. And so I kind of thrown it out to you, like, well, what if we did an episode just talking about, you know, what did we learn about rewilding in 2017, and just sort of like looking at that and you know, just to see what comes out. And so I think that's what we're going to do, and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, looking back, an anticipation of looking forward, you know. A good lead, a good segue to the conversation, Brian. So for those listening, maybe you join us, you know, collaboratively join us. Jot down something if you have the ability to jot anything down while you're hearing Brian and I reflect, because you too are doing remarkably interesting things in your daily lives. So we'd like to hear from you as well. I think, what have you discovered? What has Brian and I discovered in this last year? What's hot? What's working? What's got flow? What's a little bumpy? What's a little stuck? What needs some more attention? And what things to celebrate? Is in my stage of life, I often try to remind myself and those that I'm in relationship with, like folks in this podcast and you, Brian, to celebrate. You know, when too frequently we forget that part. Native people don't. If you look at native cultures, there's often very frequent moments in their yearly calendars where celebration is the day. It is a day of that. So I hope that we touch on celebration in this podcast and why we have reason to be celebratory about nature mentoring and reconnecting with and rewilding ourselves and others. So, yeah. Is there a particular item that you'd like to lead with, Brian?
Well, I was just sort of, before hopping on the call here, I was just, sitting down with a pad and paper and just writing down, like, what have I actually done this year? What have I done and what's been going on? And so I just sort of had some things here. Like, one of the things that actually stands out for me is that we started this podcast. And that has been just really rich with lots of great conversations and lessons that came out of that. And I think, one of the big lessons for me from, just the time that we've spent together, creating the ReWilding Conversations podcast is just, a reiteration of how simple it is to get on the phone with somebody and to share stories and to share ideas and just to listen to each other and that there's a synergy that happens when you do that. And so, that was one thing that was on my mind. I also started my Instincts mentoring program this year, which was really just an incredible experience, and I'm really enjoying getting to know my community in a deeper way and building connections with people over and over again on the phone and hearing their stories about tracking and bird language. And, it just brings up a lot for me around one of my goals, that I've been going over these past few years as I've been sharing nature connection and, wildlife tracking and bird language with people all around the world. I'm always looking for ways to share things and just get more of, like, the stories and the questions and the tips and the lessons out of my head and actually into a recorded format where people can actually benefit from it. And I find that just, having that space where, I've got this group of people and we're getting together on the phone every couple weeks, it just creates so many more opportunities for really good insights to come out. And so, yeah, just really appreciating that. And there's a lot of stuff that I could talk about. I mean, I created the Crow Language Home Study course this year, so there's a lot of lessons there. I don't want to go on and on too much, but because I really want to hear from you too, and just yeah. So okay. What have you got going on?
So what strikes me first about, as I study you more, Brian, and I had the pleasure of looking at one of your newsletters that you shared with me, is the rigor. So when any one of us, Brian, you, myself, or any other, really with authentic rigor goes into it, and does self-analysis, and then your wish to share and mentor others, there's something noble about that. There's something that's very, in a very complimentary way, elder-like with that. So I simply want others to recognize when they're in the company of, or when they themselves are operating, as I see Brian operate, as a very wise, rigorous elder related to this work of nature and rewilding, we should be grateful. We should be celebratory. I'm grateful that I have this guy, Brian Mertens, not only in my life, but I'm grateful that we have Brian on our planet doing this work. I mean, it's unique work, and it's done with deep rigor. If you have yet to go into some of his websites and peel open some of the content that's there, you'll find real deep bandwidth. So that's something that I am finding remarkably satisfying and refreshing, Brian, is having that live conversation with you and getting to know another human being's passion and wisdom at a really deep level. That's probably near the top 5 things that emerge in my list. So thank you for that, Brian. It also, I guess, I'm really certain, and I get puzzled sometimes. So what am I certain about? I'm certain that there are people on the planet that have great capacity to reconnect us because they never lost their connections. They've lived a life of blossoming connection with nature in whatever facet they are diving in. In my case, I tend to look for, to use an aquatic analogy, I tend to look for a sea that's rich with children. I look for lots of rich curiosity about remembering what was it like to be a child, what is it like to be a child, and so my vision, my mission for my work is around that. It's around helping adults and those with connections to children, parents, teachers, daycares, remember or just slow down a little bit and give the child that they're with an opportunity to be in nature. So, because I find when I do that, and in 2017 I had many rich opportunities to be with children. When I say children, my demographic is more like that 3 to 10-year-old age group. They just really are remarkably sensitive in an acutely sensual way. They're sensitive to remarkable understanding of the world around them. We live in a world that is regrettably getting more and more distant from the ambient wisdom that's in nature. And children can remind us, what does that look and feel like when you witness it in a live human being? So my work is really quite simple, and I'm really feeling much more comfortable and clear with it. And in 2017, I was at my best when I was still, when I was sensitive to the other in my space, the other meaning the children in my space, and allowed them to know that, tell me what you're seeing and feeling and witnessing, and remind us of what that feels like, because we too can reconnect with it, but we've kind of cut ourselves off from that in our electronic, screen-based, high frenzy-paced world. And it's the child who can be our wise elder. It's the child who can remind us to chill and be in it, be in some aspect of nature and nature play. And I too will, during this podcast, identify a few more very, very specific episodes of that. But I simply wanted to express my satisfaction for being sensitive to the need for children to have an adult in their life who cares enough about that child to be with them in a natural setting and not feel like you have to be some kind of nature guru. And you simply have to care enough about sharing time with a child to take them outside for half an hour and see where does that go? Where does that micro immersion with that child go? And it may be with several children, but try not to program it too tight. Leave lots of room for kind of what I call creative nature play. So I'll pause and invite you, Brian, to say or reflect on something that came up, or maybe you heard me talking, and then we'll come back and forth a few more times, I'm sure. So
yeah.
Back to you. How's that?
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I love what you just said, just that last part there when you were talking about how you don't have to be an expert in order to take kids out and give them a really great experience. You know, I'm saying this in my own words, what I heard you saying. You know, how you use the word intention. And I think that's such a huge part of it, that you really don't have to be an expert. If all you do is you have the intention to, you know, get the kids outside and, you know, almost just hold space for them to have that connective experience where they're using their senses and they're doing what kids naturally do when they get out into nature. At that age, you know, they haven't learned themselves out of a lot of those patterns, and so they, you know, it doesn't take much to get them engaged with the world. And so I thought that was really cool. And I just, another thing I found myself getting curious about, just like the work that you do, and I was wondering about like when you go when you work with groups, do you see different groups every time, or do you do you have any groups that you see repeatedly, like the same group of kids every month, or I don't know how it would work, but I'm just curious what you the way that you sort of do things when you work with groups.
So you're giving me a wonderful invite for 2018, and that would be a cohesive, ongoing relationship with a group, because I don't have that. My work in 2017 was more in a group of children, sometimes as few as 4 or 5, sometimes as large as 15 or 17 or so. There has been a theme to a program. So example of one of our real fun ones was and will be again, we'll enhance it and tweak it, you know, create a nature play hideout for trolls. I've got these miniature little 3-inch trolls, like 22 of them, that suddenly emerge about a quarter of the way into the program. They show up in the grass. They show up hidden among bushes, and the children are led to think that the trolls were here listening to us, and they want the children to build them a nature play space. So then the children scatter about the field we're in, and they come back with all sorts of random nature stuff, leaves, twigs, just whatever they can find in a relatively short period of time, say 7 minutes, 5 minutes. And then I howl like a wolf, and they come back, and we lay a big blanket out if they want to be on a blanket, if it's a little damp, or just right on the grass. And then they pair off. I say, find a friend. Some of you can work alone if that's your strong preference, but I'd really love you to find a friend here and partner with someone and build something that and adopt at least 2 trolls. So find 2 of the trolls that are laying about, and talk with them, invite them over. They might be a little shy, be friendly and gentle with them. Be curious about them. And while you are, start building a place that they can play. And these little engineers all of a sudden emerge. They build these really interesting teepee-like triangular structures, and I cut up pieces of twine, and I just randomly say, here, come grab about 6 or 7 pieces of twine that are about 3 feet long. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but I don't know, use it in your plaything. And what do the kids do? They build swings. They build all sorts of infrastructure in these little nature playscapes. Have they ever seen anyone design this stuff? No, this is just emerging from something inwardly. And I've got some remarkable photos of trolls sitting on swings under a canopy of leaves supported by twigs that are holding up the little infrastructure. And the kids are just having a blast, building these unique play spaces for the trolls. It's just, and then near the end of the program, I'll often say, okay, one of my colleagues will ask the children, well, what might you do with this? You know, where might what you've discovered today, where might you go someplace with this? What might you do next? Because I don't let them have the trolls. I want to use them. Meanwhile, I pull the parents off, and I talk to them a little bit about what they just witnessed. Because they're more witnessing it. They're not engaged. Well, some of the parents actually sit down and co-build it with 2 or 3 kids. Because what I want the parents to get is that they too, they don't need this guy Dave Bauer to lead this stuff. This is all stuff that they can do in their own backyards with their own children at any time they wish to do it. Just get creative and have fun and bring things to the activity that you find you want to bring. The only limit is your own creativity. Thank you for the very front end of that question, Brian, because I'm jotting down here, see if I can identify a group of regular, let's call them devotees to a program, to see if we can't go on a novel thread and see where that takes us. So I have no idea how that'll emerge. Maybe some people listening to this podcast can reach out and help me see, hey, I do it, this group does it, here's a place to do it, on how to maintain that regular connection. And certainly, Brian, I'm open to your suggestions on how you maintain a regular connection with a population of people you work with. So there, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think people who get what it's all about, like they see the benefits of connecting with nature, or it could be either people who are like they want the deeper benefits of nature, or people who are like just really into the skills, like they want to know things about nature. They want to do wild edibles, or they want to be a tracker or something. I think it's fairly, people are fairly open to, if you say we're going to meet the first Saturday of every month, and we're going to meet at this particular location, and maybe you could have it be just open each time, or you could do you could have a specific topic for each one. Okay. There's someone that I've been working with on doing some mentoring with him, and he's been doing these nature programs, and one of the sort of strategies that we were thinking about for, how do we get people to come back over and over again and sort of do multiple experiences. And it was just have 1 week is about tracking, another week is about, reading the forest, another week is about wild edibles. And so it's a new topic every time, and it just keeps things really fresh. But I think I imagine that if you just started putting that out to people as an option, hey, you came to one of our events, I think it would be fun. We'd love to actually get some community going where we're getting together repeatedly throughout the year. And I just always find that those kinds of experiences where you're getting to see the same people over and over again, and you're doing you're facilitating nature connection experiences with the same people over and over again. It's each time you do it, it goes a layer deeper. And so the first time it's everything's new and it's fun and it's got this level of excitement to it, and then as you get together with them over and over again, by the end of after 12 months of doing that with people, they're just in a totally different space in terms of their relationship with nature. It's really cool to see.
I'm going to put that challenge out to my Facebook group. Dave Bauer, author, if you wanted to peek at the Facebook page, you'll get to the page. I think I'll put that question out to the group in 2018 and just say, hey, who among you has a child that would consider this? And let's try for 3 episodes. Let's try for once a month on this time, on this date, at this place. Show up, and let's see if we can create a program, and the topics that will be addressed will be boom, boom, and boom. 3 is a nice number. Most people can maybe manage picturing. I could do 3 of something. I don't know if I can do 5 or 7 or 8, but 3 is a pretty nice number to aim for. So, yeah, I like this a lot. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Nice. Good. So give us, Brian, something else that you're celebratory about in terms of your work as a nature mentor in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the highlights for me was the work that I did on crow language this year, and just really discovering that crow behavior, what crows are saying, it's such a great place to start a conversation with people about nature awareness and nature connection in general, because I wrote this article about how to understand crow language. I wrote it years ago, and it's just kind of one of those things that it went a little bit viral on the internet, and so a lot of people read it, and for a long time I didn't really think too much about it. Like, I thought it was kind of just a little bit of a quirk, like it was just an unexpected thing. And as time goes on, I think I'm starting to realize that crows, actually, there's something about crows that just makes it really easy for beginners, because everyone, even people who aren't like paying attention in nature, they're not even tuned into nature in even the remotest way. They have no intention of getting outside and being mindful and all that kind of stuff. They have stories about crows, because they're very gregarious birds. They're really loud. They're always out there. And so I wrote this book called "What's That Crow Saying?" And it was like a little guide to understanding the behavior of crows. And a lot of people read that book, and I decided to sort of expand on it, and just I was like, people were like, this is awesome, like we want more. And so just expanding getting into the mechanics a lot more. How do you actually like look at a crow and know whether it's that it's alarming at an eagle down by the canal, when it's like just barely within earshot? Or how do you know when the red-tailed hawk is soaring, or when there's a cat in the neighborhood, in the neighbor's yard? A lot of that kind of stuff, using crow vocalizations to locate animals, but also just using crow vocalizations to understand what's going on in the life cycle of crows, like when are they nesting, what are they, when are they raising the young, where are they sleeping at night, all that kind of stuff. And I just found that it's a really engaging place to start with people. And so I'm really enjoying that. And I guess I would just pass that on as like a lesson. I think that anyone who is looking for kind of a way to hook people into nature, and like say you want to introduce nature awareness to people who have no prior connection experience, crows might be one way to get people sort of initiated in that, where if you sort of just like offer a crow language walk or something, where we're going to go out, we're going to find some crows, and we're going to look at what they're doing, that could be like a great way to get new blood into like a nature school, or just really anything that you might be doing. So that was a big lesson for me this year.
Cool. So crows. I'm watching this remarkable nature program where they highlight the life of Helen McDonald, who overcame the grief of her father, who died suddenly. So if anyone does TV at all, search for the Nature program, and there's a program I'm recording right now. H is for Hawk. That's it. It's that simple. And she has an internationally best-selling memoir called H is for Hawk. All sorts of awards. And this is a relatively young woman who, at a very young age, adopted a hawk, and that was her first bird of nature connection. And they do a small piece during the program of her first exercise with her hawk, her first bird. Right now, she has become one of the goshawks gurus on our planet. And it's a notoriously wild and free-spirited bird, and almost no one makes an attempt at working with goshawks because of their wildness, and she knocks it out. She knocks it out.
Yeah.
So there's this connection that we can find with other remarkably unique organisms, crows, goshawks, whatever your creature is. If you're wired to be comfortable with a creature of some sort, ask yourself, who could that creature be for me? Is that something that I resonate with? Is there something about that makes me alive? Because when you witness McDonald's passion and love and light, it's like that Jane Goodall gorilla thing, Here's Helen McDonald in the presence of her goshawks, and some of the people listening very likely have a creature, like Brian helps others, through his relationship with crows, that you too could go to a really unique relationship with in terms of your nature connections, and then bring others in. I find when I read books like The Hidden Life of Trees, or there's a wonderful book I read earlier in 2017 on bees and bee colonies, a friend from Toronto gifted me with. And there's tremendous wisdom in reading these books that these experts write about an organism they love. So maybe for 2018, some of the people listening could let themselves be open to what title catches my attention, what topic catches my attention. Is it crows? Is it snakes? Is it this? Is it that? And let me dive in. Let me find one or two really interesting people doing that work and see what I can learn. Because what I found, Brian, is it's not limited to the organism. What I learned about trees through The Hidden Life of Trees applies to the relationships that I have with humans, that the human species has with others of us. Trees are remarkably communal. There are elders in forests that are elder trees, and the book documents how the elder trees adapt and make the life of the emerging little saplings possible. And this German forester takes us into that life that he knows so well. So, so I guess that's the thread that I was captured by when I heard you talk about the crows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the more that people can get engaged with resources from, we'll call them like expert resources or historical resources, just the accumulated knowledge of people smashed into like a book or even like I love watching those David Attenborough documentaries, the nature documentaries, and they just, it's so amazing, like some of the stories that they get from, basically they must have just had like camera crews following around animals like for long periods of time and just it blows my mind to see some of the things that they discover, about like sloths that swim through water from island to island to find their mates because they live in this really bizarre landscape, and the only way to find a mate is to swim to a different tree island. And I mean, how do you figure that kind of stuff out? It's only from like being really tuned in, and then they had to capture it all on camera. And it's just, I watch those kinds of documentaries a lot of times at this time of year when it's like really dark and we get these rainstorms that just you don't want to go outside because you just get soaked in half a minute. And so, nature documentaries, it's a good way to just keep the inspiration alive and to find, I find that it stimulates like just my imagination about, wow, I mean, if if that's how rhinos are acting in Africa, I wonder if if I could apply any of those lessons to like the moose or the deer here where I live. And it's just really interesting stuff.
So I've got this dream, wish I called it, that emerged yesterday morning, Brian. And it's a good time to share it in this podcast. So the wish is, wouldn't it be cool if I could, here in my area, Buffalo, New York, identify a small group of people that I know are doing really remarkably cool work in nature. I know their names. They know my name. We touch base occasionally. And wouldn't it be cool to do a day-long kind of symposium or conference with these folks and really provide the space of connecting and create that fabric, that network of connectivity, so that as a result of the day, we would feel uplifted with each other's successes, very much like this call. Maybe just very much like this call. Maybe this call is a prototype of it. Look back on 2017, get up in front of the people that are here, give some evidence of something you're proud of that you'd like to celebrate, because others may learn from your celebration and your success. And then before we depart the day-long gig, let's see if we can create a vision, a place for this community to continue to thrive. Because what I sense happens too often is we don't pay enough attention to authentic, healthy connectivity. And sometimes Brian, perhaps you, feel a bit isolated in your efforts because you just haven't had a real lively conversation with another human being, which honestly I find the podcast to be that for me. With you, but it can get a little bit lonely, and you can run out of gas and steam. So, what it would be, a vision from the day-long gig could be, how are we really going to reconnect and stay connected, and refresh each other so that we can maintain the efforts that we're doing. I think that'd be cool. If someone invited me to do that and come, I'd come. So what I'm thinking is, someone's got to start it. Someone's got to have the idea to begin it.
Right.
So I may try that. I may be the one in Buffalo, New York, who tries to make that happen and find the support to get it to happen. So if anyone listening, including you, Brian, has some neat thoughts about what that could look like and what might be needing to be considered to make that event thrive, or if you've done something like that in your community and it went well, please do reach out to me. You can go to my website at creativenatureplay.com and leave a comment there. And I'd really appreciate any thoughts anyone has on what I might want to keep in mind if this is going to be successful. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I mean, there's an idea that has been really inspiring to me for the last this was like one of the very first ideas that I really got excited about when I first started getting interested in like personal growth and just like growing as a human being. And it's the idea that doing something once makes it easier to do it again. And it's such a simple idea. But it's kind of like we get into these habits, these ruts of our behavior where we kind of, we're going through the motions in life, and oftentimes, like the things that we want to create, like the visions that we have, maybe it's we want to have more time to just connect with people and talk and share real heartfelt conversations about things that are genuinely important to us. And the hardest time to do that is like the first time, and once you do it once, if you can put it together once, then it's easier to put it together a second time, and then you do it twice, and it's easier the third time. It just gets easier and easier until eventually that becomes the rut, and it's like you've made it habitual. So you just have lots of those opportunities. I think about it in terms of like even like motivation. Like I often hear about people who are like, I want to do sit spot. I want to do sense meditation. I want to connect with the landscape. But I just can't seem to motivate myself to get out there. Like I understand that it's good for me, and I do feel good when I do it. But just when does it get easy? And I think just like the more I think just doing it, focusing on doing it once, and then after you do it once, just focusing on doing it once again. It starts to build that kind of momentum. And I think that would be really cool if you put that together.
So you're helping me remember something we've talked about with some frequency in 2017, neural pathways. So whenever you learn something, you try something for the first time, the wisdom is it's going to feel awkward and fractured, and it's not going to flow. That's just real normal because you're creating a new neural pathway that doesn't yet exist. And what you said, and then you do it a second and a third and a fourth time. Of course, you'll tweak it a little bit more because you got more creative and you got some cool ideas and you've learned more. And now the neural pathway that allowed that first opportunity to manifest, it becomes broader and more myelin gets coated around the edges of the neural pathway. Myelin is the fatty coating that makes the electrochemical impulse more efficient and fluid. So expect that first thing to be bumpy. It's going to be bumpy. It's okay. It's supposed to be bumpy. And know, as you just said, that as you make an effort at recreating it, it will go better. And the wisdom is try to recreate it. Don't keep trying novel things one time, all the time. You won't get the neural pathway to really flourish like I'm sure in your case, Brian, when you do your first bird calling thing, now you've done maybe 25 bird calling events, and you've probably got remarkable neural pathways in terms of bird calling because you've done it so many times. So let's all remember that.
Yeah.
The repetition and the enhancing will emerge. It does emerge, and do go back and find something that brings you joy and pleasure, and because you will build on your learning from that previous moment. You'll build on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just, it's been so fun, just all these different ideas that are coming out. I want to just, encourage anyone who is listening, just, think about this question for yourself. You've heard, we've been all over the map today in this conversation, and it's really interesting to see how the different things that come out. What, for you listening, what have been your big lessons and insights about rewilding in 2017? And, just take a little bit of time to think about that for yourself. What has really been impactful for you this year? And, what have you done that's related to rewilding? And what did you learn from doing that? And then, you might find that this conversation leads very naturally into, setting goals for the next year and thinking about, how can I do this next year? Or, I have this great idea. Maybe I'll do that next year. I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, and let's knock it out, folks. Let's knock it out. Let's do something that gives evidence that we are a community. So let's try this. But here's a challenge. Brian set the stage, and I'm adding to it. The challenge is for any of you that hear this particular segment of this program, rather than wait till next week, within 12 hours minimally, no more than 12 hours, let's say maximum, do something. Do something to get back so that we can have this sense that we have a community that we're working with, and we're going to be sharing cool information, and let's see where that emerges. Does it emerge over on Brian's website, my website, on the ReWilding Conversations Facebook page? But let's do that. Let's connect and leave some evidence of what worked for 2017. What was I excited about? And let's see what we get, and see where that takes us as we enter into 2018.